So why was Bracknell chosen as a new town?
So after 1946, the government felt that East Berkshire was a good place to have a new town. So they did look at multiple other places. So Patrick Abercrombie's 1944 Abercrombie Plan said this would be a good area, but they also looked into places like Didcot, which they thought could be a good place. So originally White Waltham near Maidenhead was chosen to be a new town. But after local complaints, and due to how the good quality airbase and the agricultural land, which was desperately needed for food production, they instead decided Bracknell should be a new town. So the government viewed Bracknell as the perfect place for people from West London to move to, as it wasn't too far away from London, so you could easily get in, and it had really good transport links. It had a population of under 5,000 people, and the land quality and the land usage was good for building. So Bracknell's designated area, what now is Bracknell, is much larger than what Bracknell was before. So the designated area also includes places such as East Hampstead Village and other lands. So when we think of Bracknell now, it's not what it once was.
Right. So what was Bracknell like sort of historically as a place before this designation took place?
So in 1756, the passing of the Windsor Forest Turnpike Act caused traffic, which is horse and cart carriages, to be sent through the then Bracknell Street. So this was traffic coming from Reading to London. So by 1796, Bracknell Street, which later became known as Bracknell High Street, had a few houses among it, and the population had started to grow. So in subsequent decades, the population is slowly increasing. And then in 1846, Bracknell Ecclesiastical Parish is designated.
Yep.
So the parish is made up previously from parts of Wingfield, Warfield, East Hampstead and surrounding parishes. 10 years later, in 1856, the railway comes to Bracknell, and this is very good news because it means that goods now made in Bracknell and the surrounding areas can now be transported out, and this also brings a lot more people in. People can more easily travel about. By the 1880s, brick production becomes much more important in Bracknell. It's thought in 1880 that Thomas Lawrence, who is a well-known figure in Bracknell, started his brickyards. There were also other brickyards, and this led to bricks becoming the main industry in Bracknell.
Okay.
If you look at Ordnance Survey plans from 1890s, you can see that there's housing sort of centred on Bracknell High Street, but also in other areas the population is slowly growing. By the First World War, Bracknell's population, I'd say, is probably more in the low sort of 1,000 to 2,000. Housing is mostly on the high street and sort of in areas sort of in what's now Priestwood and sort of surrounding areas. Some important places at the time, they also had Oakley Auxiliary Hospital in Bracknell, which is where people were sent from the Western Front who had non-serious injuries, and they were sent there to convalesce. So during the First World War and the Second World War, Bracknell was also the site for the Ministry of Food, one of their cattle markets. Okay. So there they would sort of examine cattle and decide whether or not it could be made into food products. But in 1949, what became Bracknell's designated area had a population of around 5,000 people, although Bracknell, like traditionally Bracknell High Street and Bracknell Old Town, had a smaller population. So housing across the designated area had been built haphazardly. Many had no running water. They were crumbling, falling to pieces. They hadn't been upkept. They weren't in good quality. The brick market had also, brick production was in serious decline. And so although there were some shops and there was definitely some housing, Bracknell was very much a small country market town.
Okay. So when was Bracknell designated as a new town?
So Bracknell was designated a new town on the 17th of June 1949. Bracknell was originally planned to have a target population of around 25,000 people.
So what does a new town designation actually mean, and how did it take place, sort of the steps behind it all?
So what would happen is those areas or places that the Abercrombie plan had said had be good places for new towns. The then Ministry of Town and Country Planning would go to the area, they'd go and look around, talk to the local authority, review the land quality, take photographs and sort of decide whether or not it was a good site. If they felt it was, then they would take further action. So, for example, in Bracknell in 1948, the Ministry of Town and Country Planning took an aerial survey of all the area who they felt should be part of Bracknell New Town. We're really fortunate that we actually have that aerial survey in the collection. So that shows of how deep the investigation went into, because they wanted to look into what was there and what could be done. So from that point, they would, if they decided to go forward, they would then draft something called a draft designation order, which would set out sort of this area we're thinking of making a new town. And then the public could comment and if they had any issues. So sometimes the feedback could be so negative or was sometimes very good. Like their issues that the public brought up were understandable. And then another area would be chosen, which is what happened with Bracknell. But sometimes they would just alter sort of the area that they were going to decide. They'd change it slightly. And then once they wanted to move forward, they then make a designation order. So designation order is a statutory instrument, so it's a piece of secondary legislation, which means so it's not an act of parliament, but it is an official government piece of legislation. Okay. So these designation orders, which we have all the designation orders for Bracknell, they set out this town is designated a new town. This is the area included, and they'll have a plan or extra information with them that shows the boundaries. These are really useful. They're not overly lavish or decorative documents, especially for the first wave of new towns, these post-war ones. Obviously, the government didn't want to be spending its money creating these overly decorative documents, and also, as it is a government document, they're never overly lavish. And for later new towns, they did become more, there would be a couple extra pages and other parts to them. But there's sort of a piece of binding legislation that says that this is, under the New Towns Act, this area is a new town and from this day forward will be.